to be alive in this land of ours. Good to drive in this land of ours.
Hello, Canada hockey fans in the United States.
The Hockey Time Machine.
Harold Ballard. And there's an incident, a famous one, that you deserve, I think, an enormous amount of credit for. The background is Toronto captain Darryl Sittler reaches his breaking point with Leafs management and with the owner, Harold Ballard, in 1982. And you come to Sittler's defense. And you deserve enormous credit, not just because of the eventual harm it did to your career, but as you point out in the book, Sittler took a leave of absence under great emotional distress. And so I'd like you to contrast the management and media reaction at the time with Sittler and compare that to the understanding, the greater understanding shown earlier this year when Carey Price made a very similar announcement.
Yes. Well, things have changed dramatically since those days, but Sittler didn't show up for a game in Minnesota, and everybody was upset. Mike Nicoluk was upset, and Jerry McNamara was upset. Harold Ballard was upset. This guy should have shown up, and I knew that he was going through a long period of stress and consulting professionals, and I figured every guy needs a sick day off every once in a while, even team captains. So I said, well, we want you to talk about it during the intermission with Danny Gallivan and Dave Hodge, I guess. I said, wait a minute, I'm going to be in serious trouble there if I defend Sittler, and I'd rather defend him than chastise him. Well, we could tape it, and if you say something inflammatory, we could edit it maybe. I said, well, that's a good thought, but they decided, I guess, let's try to do it live, and maybe we could scrap the tape if it's too inflammatory. So anyway, I stumbled through some response trying to defend Sittler, not from Ballard so much as from Imlach. And the whole world exploded after the game. I was told by Danny Gallivan, I think you're on the flight back home, he said, I knew you were in trouble as soon as you started talking about Sittler. And he said, I took the mealy mouth way and said, well, why didn't they do something else? But Danny and I had a fun talk about it. And when I got home, he said, take the phone off the hook. Well, it was ringing when I got there, and you're not working here anymore. So I was fired. But to his credit, and Dick Beddoes and Dave Hodge went to Ballard and probably told them I was an idiot and didn't know what I was saying or didn't understand whatever they said to him that got me back to temporarily on the show, but I wasn't allowed in the gondola for further color commentary. And I had to go out to Winnipeg I didn't have to, but I went to Winnipeg for 4 years and enjoyed doing games there, except for the travel. Then 4 years in Montreal, which is another hockey heaven with winning teams. So it worked out pretty well the last 8 years of my career. And I only got one chance back in the Garden to say anything. And that was on Hall of Fame night when Bill Torrey, my good friend from St. Lawrence University, went in the hall with me, and we were invited as special guests in the gondola. So it all worked out.
Well, for whatever it's worth, let me say bravo, because you were way ahead of your time in recognizing that mental health needs to be recognized and respected just as much as physical health.
Well, you're right, Glenn, and I'm sure I know of certain players. I know Ronnie Ellis fought depression all his NHL career, and he had more courage than I do because he was a celebrity far greater than I was, and he portrayed his health problems, mental health problems, in a book and to people and in interviews. And he also stuttered badly when he was a child on a Marley. And when I invited him on a show as a junior and at CFDO TV, and he gladly came out and was a guest. And I know that it made him nervous that he was going to misspeak or stutter a little bit. Gee, the president of the United States does that from time to time. But mental issues, emotional issues back in those days were covered up or not discussed, or there was some shame attached to being depressed, for example. Well, how many goaltenders would be depressed if Guy Lafleur was shooting at you every night?
All of them. Brian, as you well know, what's all the rage with TV hockey broadcasts these days is being inside the glass. But Brian McFarlane was once on the ice. Let's take a look.
A high rising shot by Rolf caught Barry Ashby right in the face. We're going downstairs now to Brian McFarlane, who is right out there on the ice.
I talked to the linesman, and Barry Ashby was hit just on the eyelid, just above the right eye. It is a bad gash, according to the officials. Matt, you were there. Could you describe it?
Well, it's just above the eyelid, between the eyelid and the eyebrow.
Well, there's a lot of blood, and they've moved quickly to get Barry Ashby off the ice on this stretcher.
Oh, boy.
Wow.
You know, I read in the paper the next morning, flying back from Philadelphia, McFarlane told stay off the ice. I said, well, nobody's talked to me about that. I haven't heard from anybody. But I ran into Clarence Campbell, the league president, a week later in the same building, Madison Square Garden. And he was coming from the press room. I was walking down a corridor. He walked by. I said, hello, Mr. Campbell. Hello, Brian. He walked about 10 paces and he said, oh, Brian. I stopped. He said, what? He said, stay off the ice. Yes, sir. And I kind of laughed because it was an afterthought. But I was standing there with a microphone. The gate opened up. The gurney goes out on the ice. Two people, a doctor. I just stepped out on the ice impulsively. And I'll never forget Brad Park on the Ranger bench. He was the closest guy to me. He said, Brian, you're not supposed to be out here. I said, Brad, I know, but I'm not stopping now. And I kept on going and talked to Matt Pavlich. But while it was playing just now, a great deal of sadness came over me because Barry Ashby was such a class guy. I didn't know him well, but I know that all the Flyers loved their team leader. And that accident was followed by leukemia and followed by an early death. And I think, of all people to be involved with a terrible injury like he suffered that day, Barry Ashby would be the last guy you'd want to suffer from that. And then the follow-up tragedy. There was another incident with their goaltender, Pelle Lindbergh, who died in an auto crash years later. Those things are something you live with and you're part of to a degree, and you feel such sadness when good hockey people are gone.
Well said. We should also mention that the first voice you heard in that Ashby clip was your NBC broadcast partner, Tim Ryan, who is watching tonight and made a comment in the chat. So shout out to Tim Ryan.
Well, Glenn, I'm so glad you mentioned that because while it was playing, I said to myself, I'm going to mention Tim when we come out of this, and I started with something else. But I think Tim was really, he was always accused of being looking too young in his career when we first started out in Toronto here on radio at CFRB and at CFDO. And Tim was awfully young looking, but he was very skilled as a broadcaster. We did track meets together. He was ambitious. When the league doubled in size, he sent letters out. He got good broadcasting jobs. He liked the city lights. I liked the country life. So we had that difference. But we bonded with Ted Lindsay. We both had the greatest admiration for Ted, our broadcast partner. And I admire what Tim has done with his career and his life. And he had some tragedies in his life too, which I won't go into without his permission. But I just want him to know that there was a lot of love around when we were working together, a lot of admiration, a lot of respect.
Tim Ryan, in my mind, is one of the great underappreciated talents of sports broadcasting. In baseball, they talk about 5-tool players who can field and throw and hit for power. Well, Tim was able to do hockey and football and Olympic sports, and was able to be both a journalist and entertaining on all of those. And that's something, and I've left out a whole lot of sports he did. You and he did minor league baseball, for goodness sake.
Yeah, we got about $3.60 mileage for doing the baseball. They didn't have a sponsor, but our boss said, if we ever get a sponsor, we'll be able to pay you a fee. But you can have all the hot dogs you want down at the ballpark. You're going to be up on the roof doing the broadcast. And Tim and I were doing a Toronto Maple Leaf AAA game one day when we smelled smoke, and there was a fire in the stadium somewhere. And it was, we didn't know, maybe spreading up to the roof where we were ensconced. And we kept looking over our shoulder to see if the fire rigs are coming to put the fire out, whether we should sign off and flee for our lives, or whether we should keep broadcasting. And there'd be another hit and a walk and a pitch, and we'd call it and keep looking over our shoulder, and seemingly somebody took control of it. But we had a few anxious moments that day. Tim will be laughing now. He'll say, I remember that.
Here's another funny interview you did with NBC with a Bernie Perrant fan at the Spectrum. Let's take a look.
Are you afraid of getting hit by a puck?
No, I'm just here for Bernie. He's my favorite player. He's doing great in the series, and that's why I'm helping him.
You got this glass protecting you, too. Let's see what you look like underneath that mask.
Oh, man, Bernie.
Isn't he a handsome devil? Back up you, Tim.
Clearly, you were having fun, and I think that is why you had such strong connection with the audience all those years. Now, that goes all the way back to your days at CFCF in Montreal. So what were some of your favorite stunts that you remember from your time doing local sports in Montreal?
Well, I wasn't very happy in Montreal, so I can't think of a whole lot of highlights there. Maybe you could prompt me, but I know that the best thing I did there was hire Dick Irvin as my assistant. I was a one-man sports show or sports department, and when I asked for help, they said, "Oh my goodness, that would cost us money to bring in somebody." I had a fellow out west in mind, thought he might fit the bill, and they said, "If we give you an assistant, it has to be somebody local, somebody who lives in town." They were thinking of the budget. I said, "Well, Dick Irvin was on my show last week. He'd be pretty good. He sounded good. He's working at the Forum. His father's a famous coach and all this." And they said, "Well, hire him then, but offer him $75 a week." I said, "Oh, he's got a better job than that. He's making more money than that. He'd have to give up a salary of $130 a week maybe to come to work." And they said, "Well, that's it. We can't afford any more." So I said, "I can't do it. If you're going to hire him, you do it." So they said, "Send him along." So Dick went in to see them, and he came out rather grim-faced, and he said, I thought the glamorous world of television paid a little bit more than what I've been offered, $75 a week. And I said, "Dick, why don't you take it for 6 months? See how it goes. maybe things will work. And he said, well, it's a good thing I'm living at home and I'm still single. And that's one reason he got into television. And look at the career, Hall of Fame career. And I started him on the road.
So you're an agent too.
Yeah, but there were no fees.
All right, another clip, and maybe you can explain this one, or maybe there is no explanation for it. But let's take a look. It's you with comedian Marty Allen.
Come in here, pal. What is your name again?
Punchy Hemlock.
Punchy or Paunchy?
Oh, no, I'm the one with the hair.
Oh, that's right. No relative to our coach Punch Imlach.
No, listen.
You play hockey, do you?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
What do you call your team?
I can't use those words. I can't use those words on television.
What in the wide world of sports is going on there?
That's a terrible clip. I'm embarrassed about that. Those guys had no real talent. I don't know. When somebody said, I think it was Paul Patska is responsible for this. I'm
yes.
On him. He said to me once, I have a clip of you at home with these comedians from Hollywood. I said, I don't even remember them. Did I do a thing with it? Yes, you did. And now you've shown the whole world probably a few awkward home moments in my career. But it's okay.
Maybe you'll like this next one better. You're doing coverage of Rendezvous 87, the series between the Soviets and NHL All-Stars. So, of course, where else would you go for insight than to the Second City Comedy Club in Toronto? Hang on.
How do the NHL players feel about Rendezvous 87?
How do the NHL players feel about Rendezvous 87? Well, personally, I have other projects that I'm working on, like a sequel to my hockey video called Hockey Hairstyles My Way. The NHL are indeed very interested.
Oh, that's good news. We're all looking forward to the big event in Quebec City.
Oh, another silly spoof. No wonder my boss said we're not going to play the second section of that. I went to Second City and Myers, Joan Myers.
Mike Myers.
Okay, he did a really funny spot, and I brought it back, and my boss said, "Well, that's not funny." And here he was, a big star in Saturday Night Live, I guess, or in New York and movies. And I said, well, that the boss doesn't know much about show business, I guess. It's like when I wrote the Eddie Shack song and I wanted to have the band, 4 guys in a band like the Beatles, all wearing number 23, Shack's number, on the ice and lip syncing the song, Clear the Track, Here Comes Shack. And it was scuttled at the last minute. My boss said, we don't want you making money from royalties on that song. So we're not gonna have the number 23 on anybody's shirt, and we're not gonna do this or that. But we did get the song on somehow, and Shaq then harassed me for the next 30 years. Where are my royalties for that song? I said, well, you don't get any royalties, Eddie, because you told me I could go ahead and write the song. And I can remember your words. I don't give a what you do. And so you don't get any royals. He said, well, Johnny Bauer's making 3 cents a record from singing Honky the Goose. I said, yeah, he's singing the song. You never sang Clear the Track, but you pretended you did in interviews. I heard you on the air pretending you were a singer. So anyway, we had a dispute, and it ended in a confrontation at the airport around the carousel when I called him over because he'd harassed me all the way out on the flight, and all the bad words I'd ever heard in a hockey dressing room just flowed out of me and into his face, and I felt so much better about it on the trip home.
Since you talked about your bosses, if there was one constant in your broadcast career. Now, this is how you say it in the book. Quote, was I ever going to find a boss I respected? Now, in broadcasting, maybe this goes for all occupations, but as a wise sage now, Brian, how is it that so many clueless people get to be in so many important jobs?
Well, maybe it's the Peter principle. I can't answer that question, but I will say that Scotty Connell, now deceased, far too young, was my favorite boss. There were others that really helped my career. Ralph Mellenby should be mentioned. He was a good boss, but he left us too soon to go to the Olympics and do. I wished he'd stayed with Hockey Night a lot longer. There weren't few. There were. I see. I didn't work for the CBC. The rights were owned by an advertising agency, McLaren Advertising. So they really didn't have any broadcasters in their group. They had bean counters and creative guys, I guess. But if I'd been working for a network, they would have had a sports department with some knowledgeable sports guys running the show. And that never happened to me until NBC and CBS, but that was back in 1960, and it was only for one season, and I never really got established there. But good bosses are very important. I don't think I'd be a very good boss. I'm not really organized enough, but I know one when I see one.
And when you don't, and if you read A Hell of a Life in Hockey, there's a lot of don't. So Tim Ryan is in the chat saying, I knew you would credit Scotty Connell to that question. You know, you and I agree he was the best.
Yes, Tim. Oh, I knew Tim would say that, and Ted Lindsay too. Now, he had Jack Adams as a boss in hockey, and I think when he joined NBC and found out that Scotty Connell was going to be his boss, he probably said, wow, these guys are neat.
Let's discuss what was your real wheelhouse, which was the intermission interview. And I want to show an example. You and Paul Morris going up the heights into
I remember
the scoreboard at Maple Leaf Gardens.
I feel like Phineas Fogg beginning that trip around the world, and we're coming very close now to the interior of this clock, which was made how many years ago, Paul?
It's about 9 years ago now. We're not swaying too much here.
And how far are we off the ice surface?
28 feet. The bottom of the clock is 28 feet from the surface of the ice. And the first job we would do normally on a hockey day would be to change any bulbs that might be out.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, that was made in the gardens, that clock. They had people that were really clever and skilled, and they developed their own overhead clock. And I was foolish enough to go up and see what was inside.
Actually, you had a real talent for the intermission segments. Did you enjoy doing them as much as it looked like you enjoyed them?
Yes, I did. We had Halloween. They were inexpensive. There was a low budget on them, and I formed a little company and produced some with a cameraman I knew. But we never seemed to have much money to do extensive editing or fixing them up to look a little better. One I missed that really bothered me. Carl Brewer got to be a good friend, and he told me we're going to have a meeting at the hotel near the airport in Toronto Tuesday night. You better be there. So I show up with my tape recorder, and there's no other media guy in the room. There's Bobby Hull and Gordie Howe and Andy Bathgate and Eddie Shack and his wife and all these celebrities in the hockey world. And they were a couple of lawyers, and they were going to sue the NHL, I guess, or the insurance company for something like $40 million that was owing to the players. And even Clarence Campbell had said, yes, the players are owed this money. It doesn't belong to the owners, but they were using the money. And Carl Brewer, the mischief of a little guy, did some digging and found out all these facts and hired these lawyers at his own expense. I always admired Carl for this. And then I got a chance to tape all the proceedings, how they're going to proceed and get legal advice, and they're going to sue and this and that. And I said, oh, and Alan Eagleson was the culprit. They were all coming down on Al Eagleson. And I said to my boss, I phoned him right after, and I said, I've got a great feature for Saturday night. It's all about this lawsuit, and it's going to be huge. And all we have to do is get Eagleson to rebut it or reply, give the other side, and we've got a dandy feature. Well, he had told me I was slated to go to Saskatoon to do some intermission stuff, and it was $1,000 fee I was getting at the time. So he said, don't go to Saskatoon. We'll huddle over this story and see what we do. Well, the week went slowly by, and suddenly I called and said, what's happening? He said, it's too hot to handle. We just can't put that on. The league will get mad at us, whatever. I said, well, okay, well, you've sent Ron McLean to do the Saskatoon feature. What about the fee I lost for bringing you this story and you sitting on it? And he said, well, Ron did the show, so he gets the fee. So I lost $1,000 fee by being in my intrepid reporter suit and thinking I had a great interview and a great feature for Saturday night. And in the book, the editor cut off the end of it. The troubles I'm just telling you about now don't appear in the article. And I said, when I proofread the book, how come I missed that? Because it seemed to me important at the time. I don't think this makes any sense.
There's a part that's not in the book that's part of the story?
Yeah. Well, I take too long to tell my stories. I know that. And that
well, what's the part that isn't in the book?
Well, maybe there'll be another book. I always keep stuff by, you know. I've got about 8 books in my computer.
Remember, I was talking a couple of minutes ago about the corporate bosses who don't have your back? Well,
yes.
There's a good example.
Yes.
And
that's a good example. That's a good example.
Yeah.
And you call that chapter.
How about the one when I was starting out in Schenectady, and my boss, I started a softball team, the WRGB Campbells or something, I don't know. And we played a few games, and we got a little crowd coming to see us. And I asked my boss, Ted Bond, as his name was, Ted, would you like to play on our softball team? Because he was a celebrity in the town. He did the late news on our telecast. And he said, no, I don't want any part of that stuff. I'm not into that. So we're playing a game one night, and who drives up along the third base line but my boss in a big shiny Cadillac? He gets out in his 3-piece suit, walks right across the infield. All play stops. He turns to the crowd and said, hi, folks, I'm Ted Bond. They said, we know you, Ted. It's good to see you. Why don't you take a bat? He said, okay. And he picked up a bat, took off his jacket. I had to make a quick decision. I'd only been there a few weeks or months. I said, Ted, why don't you wait a while? You said you had no interest in this ball stuff before. These guys have been practicing. Maybe I could work you in the next couple of innings. He got very angry. He turned to the crowd and he said, the young sports guy here doesn't want me to play, folks, so I'm out of here. And he got in his caddy and drove away. And I came home and I said to Joan, my wife, I think I just lost my job tonight over a stupid softball game. But the next week he got fired, and he'd been there for years as the big time sport newscaster. And I said, whoa, I breathed a sigh of relief. And when Punch Imlach wanted me fired in '69 after Quinn hit Orr, and I described that, and he got all upset. They lost 10-0. He wanted me fired. And we finished the series, and I got out of the building because I didn't want to face Imlach. He would have me on the over the coals. So we're driving home, and I heard on the radio, Punch Imlach was just fired as general manager of the Leafs tonight. I said to my wife, we escaped again. Another boss gets fired, and I survive.
Brian McFarlane, the Houdini of broadcasting. I want to play one more clip, even though it's not a hockey clip, because it's amazing. It's with early baseball immortal Ty Cobb. And as you and the Georgia Peach are talking, you almost get run over by an automobile. So take a look.
Ty, I saw you over there talking to Stan Musial. Were you giving him a few tips on how to play baseball?
No, I can't give anyone any tips. Stan he's got it, and he doesn't need anybody. We were just fanning about hitting.
Okay, thank you very much for being with us on Sports Final, Ty Cobb.
I feel very much honored to be here.
Yeah, we're hit and run driver right there. But you know, that same day, Glenn, Stan Musial was one of my idols in baseball, and he was there. And I interviewed him, and when I finished, the cameraman said the film didn't go through properly. We didn't get the interview. Now he's way over there at second base. I walked over and I said, Mr. Musial, I hate to tell you this, but I'm a young sportscaster starting out, and I didn't get your interview, but the cameraman assures me it's ready to go again. Would you mind doing it a second time? And he put his arm on my shoulder and said, let's get it right this time. And we went over and we did it a second time, and we didn't get it right. He's now in the outfield warming up for the ball game, the Hall of Fame game. And I went out into the field and I said, Mr. Musial, I hate to tell you this. We didn't get it the second time. Would you mind awfully coming back when you've got a moment? And he said, let's go back and we'll do it a third time and hope that it turns out okay. And it did. But I don't have it. I have Ty Cobb. I'd love to have Stan Musial.
That is a great story. And the kicker is, the next day, the Cardinals fired Stan Musial.
No, I hope not.
Oh, okay. No, I made that up, but I thought that's how it all ended with people you come in contact with. I'm going to be fired tomorrow.
No, but I tell you what, Glenn, I like to be nice to young people starting out because I remember my beginnings. And when they tell me sometimes, well, that was nice of you to meet my son and talk to him about broadcasting or wherever, I said, let me tell you about Stan Musial. You tell how nice he was, because he was great.
Indeed. In the few moments that we have left, and this has been wonderful, but I want to go over some of the high points in the life of Brian McFarlane that we haven't discussed already. And the first one is, please tell me and the audience, who is Franklin W. Dixon?
Franklin W. Dixon is a pen name for the first author of the Hardy Boys books back in 1926. My dad got the job as the original Franklin W. Dixon. He got $100 a book to write a Hardy Boys book, and he wrote 21 of them over the next 20 years. He got no royalties, and they sold 80 to 100 million copies, probably a million every year are still sold. He never complained. He said, I knew what the deal was. If I hadn't done it, it was hack writing. Anybody else could have done it. I said, no, they couldn't, Dad. You did a wonderful thing. You got millions of kids hooked on reading. They went from the Hardy Boys to better books, maybe. And I think somehow I got the bug to write my own series of books. And I'm always pleased when somebody said, you know, you started me on reading about hockey, and now I've got a collection of hockey books that's famous. But my dad was an amazing man. He was small. He was jockey-sized. He was shy. Everything was going on in his head. All these stories. He wrote great hockey fiction. He went to the National Film Board when they were first born, making movies in Canada. He was nominated for an Academy Award over a fishing film he wrote. He went to Hollywood and wrote for Bonanza briefly, worked with Lauren Green and others out there just to prove he could do it, like I do in my life, I guess. I was immensely proud of him. My daughter, his daughter Nora, my sister, is a skilled writer of novels living in Lewiston, New York. We're dearly in love with each other and compare notes almost every day. I have a wonderful family, my wife of 65 years. We met the very first day of college at St. Lawrence University, and we've been there. We are, Joan Pellet from Hillsdale, New Jersey. She'd never seen a hockey game, and now she knows more about the game than I do. We have four great grandkids now. And Connor was born. He may be another Connor McDavid. Wouldn't that be something? Oh boy!
Well, I want to ask you about Joan. A few years ago, Joan went to the Burning Man Festival in the Nevada desert, the one with the scorching heat and the nighttime chill and the always sandstorms, and she did it at the age of 81. That is some firecracker you married.
Well, she is. She has a temper. Yeah, she's a firecracker. And she went out there with my daughter and her husband and stayed and slept in a pup tent and got up. And what you don't know is she taught 30-year-olds fitness exercises in the morning because she has a degree in fitness that she got when she went back to college at age 44 to get the degree. And she's the best fisherman I've ever met. That's probably why we married. We like trout fishing so much.
When is she writing her book?
Oh, I hope she doesn't write her book because I'll be in it. And I want me to be in my books and her to be in my books. I don't want to be in her book.
Can you bring Joan in for a second to say hello?
No.
Sure.
No.
She's a good sport.
No.
Come on in.
No.
And she had a hole-in-one in golf. I've never had that.
Oh, and now
I could run faster than he could.
Oh, she was a good athlete. You know, Glenn, in her era, the girls who were really talented.
She has to scooch in towards you a little bit.
The girls who were really talented in sports never got a chance. There were no girls' teams. She would have been excellent on track and field or maybe the wrestling. I don't know.
Well, Joan, you need to tell us the story. You got your hubby a broadcasting gig in Toronto.
I did.
Well, tell us.
We just moved up from the States where he was in WRGB, Schenectady, New York, and decided that he wanted to come back to Canada to do hockey. And so we were in bad shape. We didn't have any money, and we were living in an apartment. And lo and behold, who moved downstairs but the Retzlaffs? And he was in the CBC as a sports director. And I used to do the laundry down in the basement with his wife. And so when I heard that he was sports director at CBC, I said to her, my husband's a sportcaster and he's looking for a job. We just moved here and maybe you could talk to him. And she did. And he got an interview and
he let me do a sportscast Monday night, $50. And I called all the radio stations in town, and CFRB, the top station, called and offered me a job the next week.
Wow.
Thanks to her.
Way to go, Joan.
Oh, you know what he wanted to do? He said, because we were down to like $5. We couldn't pay the rent. We had a new baby. We didn't know what we were going to do. He said, okay, Joan, I'm going to take a sales job and I'm going to sell pots and pans. I said, you are not selling pots and pans. You're a sports director, sports person. No. So that's the way. I put my foot down, said, there's no way you're selling pots and pans.
But Mike Ilitch sold pots and pans, and he got to own Detroit, the Red Wings. That's how he started.
Well, but he doesn't have Joan.
No, that's true. No.
So well done. So we have one guest to bring in, and thank you, Joan. Don't go anywhere.
Thank you for having us.
My pleasure. You were interviewed some 25 years ago by the other fellow who hosts Hockey Time Machine, TVO's Steve Paikin. And at the end of the programs he hosts, he is kind enough to bring me on for a couple of minutes. And now I get to return the favor. So here is Steve, and I want to play just a moment of a clip from your interview from the mid-90s.
Hour 2 of Double Play for Friday morning. I'm Bruce Dobringham from CBC News World. He's Steve Bacon from TV Ontario.
This guy's my hero. Do you know this? This guy, I'm not kidding you. I'm sorry to interrupt, but he just walked in. He just walked in and I got excited. I'm sorry, Brian. I don't want to date you, but I really do feel an obligation.
You just want to hold his hand?
But, no. But I have I want our listeners to know that one of the reasons I'm in broadcasting today is because of you. I remember watching you on the weekend afternoon broadcasts and for Hockey Night in Canada for so many years, and you were one of my guys.
Oh, you've made my whole week, Steve. That's wonderful.
I'm sorry to be mushy about that.
Steve, the floor is yours.
I'm just very happy to be able to experience this moment with Brian. I think I summed it up pretty well 25 years ago in that radio broadcast when I said that, it's absolutely true. I think one of the reasons I've ended up doing what I'm doing is because of Brian McFarlane. I did watch him a great deal when he did the Game of the Week. And I read most of your dad's Hardy Boy books as well. And you were one of those people who had a tremendous influence on me, if I can say this, growing up. So I'm happy to come crash your little party at the end here, Brian.
Well, I'm going to return the compliment, Steve, because I've always admired your work. And I'm so glad at times I get a chance to see somebody. I want to tell them how much I respect them. That's you in this case, but I'm distressed as I'm 90 years old. I know I'm not going to meet certain people in time to tell them how much I appreciate them. And so I'm advising anybody who's aging, say it now, okay? And mean it.
Do you know what? That's it. What you just said is very profound. And I took your advice, having not even heard it yet, but probably you were intuiting it to me. I'm sure you met or knew former Ontario Premier Bill Davis during the course of your life. And I had the great fortune to spend a lot of time with him in his latter years. And I wrote a book about him. And he just died this past August at 92. And I called him on his birthday, which was in July. And I knew it would be the last time I spoke to him because I could hear it in his voice that he wouldn't be around for much longer. And I told him how much he meant to me. And I've never said that to a politician before. So your advice is spot on. And everybody watching or listening to this tonight should listen to Brian McFarlane because he is wise and he offers good advice.
And keep listening to Steve Bacon because he's one of our best.
You are too kind, sir. Anyway, Glenn, I pass it back to you. Thank you for letting me crash your party. But this is a really great moment. Brian, I'm so glad you're still going at it at 90. You're a great example for the rest of us to just keep on keeping on.
Well, I may have 10 minutes or 10 years left, Steve, and I'm thinking maybe the latter because Joan's going to live till 116. And well, I can't do the math anymore, but it looks like we're going to do that.
Yep.
Good stuff.
Thank you, Steve. Brian, they would not let me hear the end of it if I didn't mention before we said goodbye your best friend other than Joan, which is Peter Puck. Now, Peter's entire career of intermission segments added together lasted something like 27 minutes. So how is it, do you think, that his name a half century later is still instantly recognized?
Oh boy, that was an NBC creation. The animation from Hanna-Barbera. I think I instantly knew that Peter was going to be popular, so I asked them about the book rights, and I did a book with the company, Hanna-Barbera. I ultimately bought the Canadian rights to Peter Puck and eventually the worldwide rights to Peter Puck. But it's been a sad story because a lot of people have, I don't want to say ripped me off, but taken Peter and used him illegally to sell buttons and pins and pajamas and books and records and whatever. And no royalties ever flowed to us except not even from the books, really. But this is a long story and a complicated one. All I know is that Peter in the Eaton Santa Claus parade was second in popularity to Santa Claus in 1 or 2 years. We should have done a lot better as business people, but thanks to Joan, we got as far as we did. I don't have any business acumen, and I wish I had, because I would have made Peter a star worldwide, overseas, Europe, Russia, wherever. And it may still happen, because there are entrepreneurs out there who can see the future for Peter. Too long-winded explaining all this, but he was a big part of our lives. A lot of fun, but a lot of misery as well. So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, since you played Santa Claus, you actually finished 1-2 with Santa and Peter Puck. You finished 1-2, Brian.
Yeah, I can't think of any other characters I played except myself.
Well, I don't know. Who was this guy on the left?
Oh, my goodness. The past is haunting me. $25 to model a sweater. Do you want it or not? I said, I'll take it. We need to pay the rent. And that was the Beehive Company. I was in several commercials. And Eaton's catalog called me one day, or an agent, and said, show up at the studio. I showed up, and they threw a set of underwear at me. And there were 5 other guys all ready with some were in their underwear, some were getting in their underwear. And they said, there's a dressing room, here's your underwear. I threw it back. I said, I just got a job doing hockey on CBS. I'm out of the underwear modeling business, and walked out.
Well,
proudly.
You left that profession, and thanks to Joan, the world lost a great pots and pans salesman.
Yeah.
But your magazine column for your Scotiabank Hockey College was called Stick Handling Through Life. And Brian, you have not only written that, but you have showed us all how to live it. So you and Joan, thank you so much for the last hour and a half. It has been a tremendous pleasure. I can't thank you enough. And please, continued success. We are all better for having spent time with you, and we very much appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Glenn, for your questions. They were pertinent and right on, and I enjoyed answering them, and I enjoyed being with you tonight. I'll tell you that. The audience may be asleep, but we're both awake and appreciating each other, and I think that's a good thing.
For Hockey Time Machine, we'll say goodnight. Thanks for joining us.